All right, man, let's check this out. This is a dire warning to Trump. Let's see what this is.
If you were the commander in chief of the United States, what would you do at this point as of today?
Commander-in-Chief meaning Donald Trump?
Yeah. You get to make the decisions.
Or
What does America do now?
This is the professor, right? I've seen him before. He has some very interesting stuff. So he interviewed him.
Next? If it's acting in its own interest, if it's trying to preserve its power and wealth at this point, what does it do?
Well, first of all, I would acknowledge that all these events are interconnected, right? So this trade war of China, this war in Ukraine, this war in the Middle East, it's all interconnected because the American empire is too overstretched and it has its fingers on everything. And so it allows its enemies to provoke it into these never-ending wars. So what I would do is basically sit down everyone, okay, including Russia, China, Iran, and say, it's time for a new world order where we are
A new world order, huh?
partners in this relationship, right? Before America was the hegemon, before the US dollar was the world reserve currency. But now what we want to do is open a dialogue where everyone is respected, where America is no longer the bully, but a willing partner in creating a new economic order that benefits everyone and not just a few.
I think that's the wisest possible advice and probably the only path that preserves
But I think that's the path that, we were warned about is coming.
civilization. But the one country standing in the way of that is Israel, which is the only beneficiary of this war.
According to what's written, right? And here it's the thing is are these things happening because they're supposed to happen? Right? It's like prophecies. Or are these things happening because some fanatics read about them and they're like, we need to do this now? You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to tell, man, but what he just said there, the professor, is there's going to be this anti-figure, this antichrist figure. Who knows who it's going to be? There's a bunch of theories out there. There's forever there've been theories. Who's going to unite a peoples, right?
You just said. I think that's true. Can you think of another beneficiary other than Israel of this war?
Well, Russia benefits, right? Because Russia is trying to win this war in Ukraine.
That's correct.
And America is forced to lift oil sanctions. And so now Russia is now able to take all these war profits, right? And then help the Iranians, finance the Iranians in the struggle against the Americans.
Those are interesting insights, man. I hadn't thought about that. That's a very good point.
That's really, so the Russians also benefit tremendously from this war.
Yeah, but fair point. Israel has to be constrained by the United States in order to do what you just recommended it do. Is that possible? Does the American president have the authority to control its client state?
So if you look at the domestic situation in Israel, Israel no longer behaves rationally. It is sort of overtaken by eschatological fever, right? So if
That's
you
what
look,
they call it, eschatology, is the study of the end times, I think.
Look at videos coming out of Israel, there are rabbis going around saying that this war in the Middle East, even though it's destroying Tel Aviv, it's good for us because this will lead to the coming of our Messiah.
I've heard about this also, man. I have not checked out those clips, though. I thought they were AI. So it's real, huh, then? It's real.
So they believe that it is when Israel is under the most strain, when the very existence of Israel is threatened, then God will intervene because the Jewish people will come together as a nation again and commit themselves, renew their faith in God. And once God sees the blind, trusting, absolute faith of the Jewish people, then he will save his people by sending his Messiah, who will then redeem the Jewish people. So another way of saying this is secular temporal matters don't really matter. This war in the Middle East, not an issue. What matters is divinity. What matters is our relationship with God.
Yes.
So what matters is faith. If nuclear bombs go flying, doesn't really matter.
it's
What
what
very, very interesting insights, man. Honestly, that's
what's so interesting
that's
is that, you know,
crazy.
25 years ago at 9/11, whatever you think of how that happened and why, there was, I saw it personally, you know, a political Islam. There were Wahhabists. There were a lot of Islamic radicals around the world. And for a bunch of reasons over 25 years, that hasn't disappeared. There still exist Islamic radicals, but it's not, you know, an important political force anymore. At the same time, as Islam in general has become much more moderate, and the GCC is kind of the most obvious example of this, there has been a rise of Jewish Wahhabism and evangelical Christian Wahhabism, so to speak. I mean, you've seen this eschatological extremism among some American Protestants, Christians, and some Israeli and American Jews. How did that happen? What is that?
Right. So first of all, I don't think we can ever overestimate the influence of eschatology in American politics.
Exactly.
So I'll give an example where about a quarter of Americans are evangelicals, and a lot of them are Christian Zionists. So they believe that Israel is crucial, the linchpin to achieving God's plan and the return of Jesus. And so a very prominent figure that you probably know very well is John Hagee, who runs something called the Christians Unite for Israel. It's 7 million.
Isn't it like in Revelations? It's supposed to be like this cube thing that sits there, right? It's not. It's just something that comes from somewhere else. It's like a cube thing that just comes and lands on Israel, and that's what's written in Revelation, right? I want to say so.
Members. And
I've heard a lot of pastors and stuff, you know, that are I've heard of a lot of this Zionism terms, and you know that everything is about them, and it's just like, well, you know, Jesus did away with that stuff. Like, there's no, I think in the New Testament, it's like there's no Jewish or Gentile, there's no free or bond, or you know, no man or woman. So it's interesting how either they're getting paid for those things, or something is off.
these are the people who are financing a lot of the conflict in the Middle East, in Israel, because they're the ones who are funding West Bank settlements. And so Christian Zionism, it is an extremely powerful political force in America. So your question is, how did this happen? And
Yes.
the issue is that this is a plan that has been in motion for centuries, and it's a very complicated history, but it involves different religious groups among the Jews, Septim Francus, Shabbat Lubavitch, which you've talked about, but also it involves the Freemasons, the Knights Templars, the Rosicrucians. It involves the Jesuits. So you have these different secret
Bro, it's like just naming off factions, man. Secret societies.
different religious organizations working together for the centuries to achieve this plan for the end of the world, which heralds the Messianic age. Okay, and there are different components of this plan, but the basic components are: one is the creation of the nation state of Israel, which happened in 1948. And then you need to have
I heard of this theory about that the creation of Israel in 1948. Now, mind you, this is just a theory that I heard. Was that Hitler didn't do what he did just to do it? That he was being financed, or that he was financed by Jews, by prominent Jews, to commit the acts that we've read about, in order for them to push the state of Israel. That was their way to do it. In other words, like kind of like a false flag buy-in. I don't remember who I heard it from, but that was a very interesting take. At the end of the day, right, the history that we've been taught to believe is just one of those, right? Like, who knows if they were trying to indoctrinate us into going with some kind of narration. But what I want to say is, like, it's always good to question everything. Again, this was just something I had seen. I don't remember if it was on X or what, on TikTok. And I can't remember who it was, man. But it was interesting to say the least, right? I had never thought about that could be a possibility, you know.
The building of the third temple, which requires the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is actually which could happen during this war, given what we've seen so far. So the Israelis have
That's a mosque that sits on the temple, right?
closed off the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as well as other religious sites like the Church of Holy Sepulchre.
I've heard about this also, that something about that to tourists they had shut down the Holy Sepulchre. And again, this is like there's so many. We're getting, you know, PSN at this time of recording this video. PSN is down. I would have been doing that instead. Instead, I'm checking through the news and social media, right? So you get like bombarded with all things, right? A lot of it is kind of hard to verify. But one of the things I saw in passing was like they had shut it down because of the Antichrist. That they're getting ready for the Antichrist to rise, and that's why they had to close it down. Other people were saying that it was because it was hit by a missile. Some people are saying that there's going to be no missile hit. It's going to be an inside job in order for them to get away with what they want to do. So you see, it's like a bunch of theories coming at you at once, and it's just who do you believe, you know?
To tourists these past few days. There's rumors that for the past 2 years, the Israelis have been conducting these archaeological digs under the Al-Aqsa Mosque to basically destroy the foundations of the mosque, so that they can conduct a controlled demolition of the mosque and blame it on a missile strike from the Iranians. And there's actually talk.
This is where I've heard about this. Somebody somewhere had mentioned this
among the Israelis of using this plan to ignite a war between the Arabs and the Persians. So
that's interesting, man. That's interesting to me. Like, it's not our fault. It was them. They're the ones that did it. This guy, this professor guy, it's like he's thought about everything, bro. This it's crazy.
Mosque needs to be destroyed for the third temple. They also talk about this war of Gog and Magog between Israel.
Ezekiel 38, right? Ezekiel 38, 39.
And the entire world. Then the coming of the Jewish Messiah, the creation of the Greater Israel Project, the return of all Jews from the diaspora. So there are different
until they find out that, you know, the Messiah was already here, that the Messiah had already came. It's gonna be a hard lesson to have learned, you know.
Components to this plan. If you just observe geopolitical events,
and he has a name, Jesus Christ.
We're seeing these events converge together today. I mean, all these events are playing out. So it seems as though there are these very powerful shadow forces working behind the scenes. We don't know who they are, but it seems as though they're able to control geopolitics in a certain manner as to fulfill their eschatological script.
That is very thought-provoking, man. Honestly, that is, you know. But at the same time, if you've read and you've come to the faith, right, and you know Jesus Christ, we're not worried about anything. Like, it's whatever happens, it's because it's, you know, who cares? Somewhere in Revelation it says, you know, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. It doesn't say some. It doesn't say only the believers. It doesn't say only those who believe forever, right? Or, you know, the rich or the poor. Or no, it says every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. So I'm not worried at all.
What role do you think Donald Trump plays in this?
This is interesting too, bro, because back in 2015, when Trump, right, was announcing that he was I kind of saw something there, and it was like when they made the announcement of like Trump Pence, and it was like Trump Pence, and it's like a play on words, like trumpets, right? And there's like 7 trumpets or something in the book of Revelation, and so it's like the 7 seals of judgment, and there's like the bowls of wrath, and all these things. It's like 7, right? The number of completion. And so Trump Pence was another one, right? And so he's like the 45th and 47th, right? So 7th is the completion in there, right? It's like, it's all, again, is there like a mastermind behind this, right? The blueprint, or is like somebody who's pulling the strings, right? That's like, hey, we need to do like this, you know? Who knows, bro?
That's a really hard question to answer. So let's look at different possibilities. Okay, the first possibility is that he's been employed as an actor, and he's just following a script, but he doesn't really know where this movie is going. He's just doing his part, but he's manipulated behind the scenes by people around him. And when reporters asked him, like, why is this war in Iran happening, he did say that his advisors, which include Sivakov, Jared Kushner, Peter Hegseth, Marco Rubio, told him that the Iranians were so close to getting a nuclear weapon and that the Iranians were going to attack first. And so I was basically misled. And I think that's probably true, in that Trump surrounds himself with certain people that have a certain political eschatological agenda. So that's one possibility, that he's just an actor.
Interesting.
Another possibility is that he himself has a messianic calling. Okay, and what I mean by that is, if you go back to January 2021, he was politically dead, right? Because the January 6 riots happened. He was impeached twice, and then after he left office, there was lawfare conducted against him, and he went bankrupt. So it was as though the entire world went against him. But now he's president of the United States. And so how would he personally understand this? I think a lot of it is God has asked him to serve. There's a call to serve, and he has to fulfill a mission. But what this mission is, okay? What this mission is.
Especially after he that Butler incident in Butler, Pennsylvania. Especially after that, who knows?
Whether it's to save Israel, whether it's to save America, whether it's a part of a grander scheme, only he in his heart knows. And I think no one except him knows, okay? So I think that's another possibility. And the third possibility is that this is all Israel's doing. Netanyahu is the one who's forced him into this sort of situation, because the Israelis attacked first. And Marco Rubio said this, where, you know what, we wanted these negotiations, but the Israelis were planning to attack. If they attacked, the Iranians would be compelled to attack both the Americans and the Israelis, and we did not want to put our soldiers in harm's way, so we attacked with the Israelis. Okay, so it's possible this all Netanyahu and all his machinations. And another fourth possibility is they have co-opted him. Like, there's blackmail on him. There's and he has absolutely no choice but to do what he says, because he's compromised in a certain way, and maybe his family is under threat. So all four are possibilities, and quite honestly, I have no idea which possibility is the most correct.
It is a tricky situation, man, right? Especially if you have family, and it's like when that comes into the picture, and it's like, do what we say or else, right? And stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you gotta play ball, man.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does, and I've really tried to keep speculation to a minimum. You always want to believe that people's motives are transparent. They state why they're doing what they're doing. But of course, you can.
Who knows why this is happening, and who knows why this is happening now? Why is this happening now, right? There was this other theory I saw. I was a pastor, and there's like a bunch of theories, right? Like the history of the world, or in regards to human civilizations. We've only been here for, what was it? It was like 6,000 some years, right? So according to the days of creation, right, in Genesis, right, because it's 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord, or something like that. And so 1,000 years have passed, right, on earth is just one day, but there was 7 days to creation. And so this pastor was like tying it in to, like, we're on the 6th day, and on the 7th day, right, God rested. That's also when Jesus rose as well. So it was something like that. It was something like that, where it's like the time is coming. The time is coming, right, to go into that, as a professor put it, the messianic age. 1,000 years is what is written. The millennia.
Never know what's inside a man, right? Even in yourself, it's hard to know your own motives very often. So I think that's a wise take. People see.
So very interesting conversation, man. That professor is thought provoking, to say the least. Like, comes up with a bunch of stuff, a bunch of good theories, right? It's like theories, conjecture. He has like one is like called game theory. He has a game theory. See, look at the comments here. They screwed us with this BS for Israel. America needs to remove Israel's corruption of America 100. Did not think Tucker Carlson would have the professor on his show. Neither did I, bro. Um, the Israelis are wanting the Antichrist to appear. That's what it seems like. How would Jared Kushner know how close Iran was to getting nukes? Gotta question that. How exactly, man? Some civilian, right? He's just like married to the guy's daughter. Who is that guy? Who is that guy, bro? Files versus war, right? It was interesting too that as there was these Epstein files were coming out that this happened, right? It's like there's always something else. So it's interesting to say the least. Thank you, Tucker. Professor Jiang is his name. God range, he's all over the place, man. Tucker, gotta love it. So very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think, why this is happening. Let me know what you think is going to happen. And I'd be interested to see, to check out your reasoning and logic behind, your comments. So please leave a comment for sure. I will definitely be reading that. If you haven't already, leave a like, comment, subscribe, repost, retweet, all those good things. You know what you gotta do. But I will see you all in the next one. Peace and God bless everybody.